Hi everyone, this is Andre from Localization Academy. Welcome to another small tutorial where we're going to try a new platform. In this one, it's going to be Wrike. And I'm going to show you in this video how we're going to set up Wrike so that it works for localization projects. I will tell you what I think is great about Wrike and what I also think doesn't work that well. Full name, Andre. Now let's customize your experience. Project management, how large is your company? Very small. What's your team called? Say LA team. What project is your team working on? So this is where we're going to start laying out our first project, which is the simple one, project A. What needs to be done? I'm just going to put the main tasks here, review and delivery. And how would you group those tasks? And I'm going to put all. So basically means we don't need to group anything for this project. And how do you want to see work? We start for projects by using table first. So next, and invite the team. As usually, I'm going to invite these two fabulous people who don't exist, I and Christian. And we're just going to use them for some tasks just so that you can see how you can assign it, but it's very simple. All right. So what happens is that we get this video, which we don't need. So what happens first? And okay, we got it. So this is where we are starting with Wrike. First impression, I like the UI. I think it's very clear that this is the focus. I like the way the tables are, let's say, designed. And what you can see here, when I was asked about the team, it created a separate workspace for me. So I have a personal workspace and I have the one for the team. And we already have the, we already have the project A, right, with the 3 tasks. For some reason, it adds these 2 groups, like next month and next year. This is what I would like to explain to you first when it comes to Wrike. What I really like is the level of structuring and how deep you can create your hierarchy. So these both things, although I was asked if, like, what is the group, how would I want to group this? This is actually a folder. So here I can add an item, and here you can see I can add another project. I can add a task, which is the default one, and I can add a folder. So this group here is basically a folder. So what we're going to do first is that we're going to delete the ones that were added by default. And another thing, which is here for Wrike, what I just did is that I right-click on the tasks. So the contextual menu actually works here. I could also create these 3 tasks without the group or folder, but by default, the indent between the project and the task would be kind of huge. So I just use the folder just to have something here. And of course, then once we start creating project B, you will see that we will utilize the folders a little bit more to separate our different language scopes. The next thing I'm going to do is we're going to set up our columns, the information that we need to be tracking for each task. So we have assignee, we have status, we have start date, due date, then we have a duration here, which I'm going to hide. And you cannot delete it because it's a default field. And then we have effort, which I'm also going to hide. And I think this is pretty much all that we need for our tasks. Since our data structure, the thing that we want to be tracking for the project, is set up, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add the subtasks. So like I mentioned before, the hierarchy here, creation of the hierarchy and going deeper in the structure is pretty well. So if I right click on the translation, I can add a subtask. And as always, we're going to add subtask for each language. So this project A, we always do 4 languages: German, French, Japanese, and Korean. Next thing what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same thing for the review. Okay, so this is our very simple project. One more thing that I forgot to add the scope. So for translation, we do 30K. For review, I think we have 40 hours, and then we just deliver. So now that I have the effort, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the dates. So today is Tuesday when I'm recording this, January 11th. I'm going to say that we started translation yesterday. And so for 30,000, that's going to take 3 weeks. So end of January. And I'm going to copy the dates into the subtasks. And this works pretty fine. One thing that I've noticed, and it happened just now, when I pressed Ctrl V very fast after each other, the platform didn't recognize it. So you need to kind of like give it 1 second before you paste the value again, because it just doesn't work. So, okay, so now that we have our dates for everything, I think we say that for French, let's say they finish on the 1st of February. Okay, so now that we have that, actually, let me go to the review. Okay, finally, delivery. We're going to set it as a sort of a milestone on the 4th. There. Now, another thing that I have to point out right here when we're entering the data, the very surprising thing to me is if I press delete and I'm right here on the cells, nothing actually happens. So delete doesn't work. You would have to go inside and delete the value manually through the edit. So that's one thing that I don't like. Second thing that could technically be improved is that in many of the other platforms that I tried, when you pick, let's say, the time frame for a certain task, so in this case, started and due date, you could actually see, like, for example, here we finish on the 1st of February. So other platforms would maybe, let's say, highlight the dates between the start and the due date. So you can actually see the time spent for the task. But here you just kind of like select start date and due date without the platform sort of realizing what is the relationship between these two. Now, final thing that we need to do is we need to set the statuses, right? This is maybe where it's a little bit more interesting because you cannot change the statuses, I mean the set of statuses that you can actually choose here in your, let's say, project management view. So these statuses, the statuses that you can use, need to be defined through the settings. This is where Wrike reminds me a little bit of Jira. That's in Jira where it's also related to something else. So if you go to your profile, to settings, and we go under account management and workflows. So here we have a default workflow, and this is where you can see the different statuses that you can use. So this makes pretty much sense to me. I think it's a little bit more controlled way how to set up the statuses. So what we're going to do is we have the completed one, we have the new and in progress, pretty much the standard thing. What I'm going to first do is I'm going to change the colors. So for the new one, I'm going to pick the grayish one because we have a lot of those. Completed one, I'll pick the brown because nobody likes brown. And in progress, we're going to do the green one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add, as usually, our statuses, which should represent the statuses that should only be used for the subtasks. And as usually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hack it by prefixing it with an arrow. So here we're going to add a first status, which is heads up sent. Okay, and for heads up, we're going to do, let's say, this color. And then for heads up confirmed, we're going to do orange. And then we do handoff sent. I'm going to pick the purple ones this time. And handoff confirmed, the darker purple. Okay, and then I was thinking that you can of course reorder them. by the way, how they appear in your dropdown once you select the statuses, but I think this actually worked because in progress is kind of like our, let's say, top level status, and all of these are sub statuses which actually fit into in progress. So I think we have everything complete, so I can save it. Everything's done, and now if this works, I would go back to the workspace. So like I mentioned in the beginning, you actually have finish. You actually have 2 spaces, and we are adding our projects to the team one. Okay, so here on the left side, I'm going to select project A, and this is where we left off last time. So I'm going to expand all my things, and now what we're going to do, final things, I'm just going to set the statuses. So project A is in progress. That's it for the statuses. One last thing that I like to set up is to set up assignees. So for the project, I'm going to be the assignee. Then for the main tasks, I'm also going to be the assignee because I'm technically, let's say, overseeing that the translation and review get done. But for the actual German translation, this is where I can assign it to Christian, and for Japanese, I'm going to assign it to I. And here you had bunch of notifications that the task was shared with people, but that's not what we need right now. So right now our project A is pretty much set up. Before we leave the table view, 2 things that I want to tell you about, and that is, first of all, the filter. By default, you have only the active tasks filtered out. So again, once you set up something to be completed, it will go away from the view. Depending on your preference, you can leave it as it is, or I would keep it as all tasks, especially if I have smaller projects. And then here we have sorting. So priority sorting. This is where I was a little bit confused because I thought that the priority is actually a field where you can set the priority, but the priority actually means how you organize it yourself. Okay, so through this drag and drop, you actually set the priorities. So you can technically see the priorities here with the numbers. Now that we have the table view finished, we're going to jump into the Gantt chart. Like I always say, I think Gantt chart is the best way if you're a visual person and you want to see what's happening today, tomorrow, what should be going on your project this week, and so on. So let's go into the Gantt chart and see what's available there for us. Okay, so this is the default view of the Gantt chart. I think it looks very, very nice. Even these folders and like the wrapping this thing here, like the top border, or how to say it, it looks very good. One thing that I would like to point out at the beginning is that since we know that our project is starting here, I'm not sure why we are seeing these other weeks before the project. So you can always move the calendar a little bit. So let's say this is where I would prefer to see it so that it's not so far away. And then here on the left side, this is where you have some, let's say, tabled data on top of the Gantt chart. And here we have even some predecessors. What is going on here? I don't think we need the start date and due date. So the way you can delete it, remove it from the view, is through here, through the gear icon, and I don't need to see the predecessors. I don't need to see the start date and due date either, because I have that on my Gantt chart. Okay, and then again, you can expand all. So here we can see very nicely all the subtasks for each language and the color for the status. Okay, what you can also see here that some of the text, the labels are cut off, so you can resize it so that it fits. And our sorting is right now by predecessors. I'm going to set it to priority so that it matches the order that I gave it in the table view, right? Remember that the priority ordering is, let's say, technically your own manual sorting. Here, just like usually in other platforms you can choose different zoom levels. And I think you go into days, it's maybe too much. this probably tracks like the hours within a day. So I think that weeks are pretty much fine, and a little bit zoom, and this is exactly what I like. One last thing, again, here you have the filter. Again, by default, it's selected to all active tasks. I like to keep it as all tasks. Final point that I would like to say is, what again, another thing that I like is that the weekends here are slightly grayed out. So you have very good and easy orientation of what is the actual work week and what are the weekends. With that being said, I think we're done with project A. So this is our simple project. What we're going to do now is we're going to create project B. And the way that we're going to create project B is by first duplicating project A, because we want to preserve the things that I created here for project A. So I'm going to duplicate it, call it project B. Location is right in our workspace. And what are we copying? Tasks, descriptions. Okay, even though I don't have any descriptions. Assignees, that's fine. And just duplicate. All right. So for those of you who have seen the previous tutorials, you know what's coming up. Project B is slightly more complicated. What we do for project B is we have still 4 languages, but German and Japanese have different scopes, so different sets of tasks than French and Korean, and we want to somehow nicely organize it. But in Wrike, this is very, very simple, and it's very, very nicely done. So like I mentioned earlier, what we're going to do is we're going to create folders. So I'm going to create a folder for language independent. We still have that one preprocessing at the start. And then I'm going to create one more folder, which will be for French and Korean. And this one, which is called all, I'm going to rename to German, not HA, but German Japanese. Okay. Now, one thing that I'm going to tell you right now, you don't have any option here to set up how the folders are ordered, okay, because the folders technically ignore the priority for some reason. Like I cannot drag this above this. So hopefully I'll just leave it as it is. So the folders are automatically by default, and you cannot change this, sorted by alphabet. So if I want to start my folders with language independent, that's what I want. I'm going to put 0, 1 at the top. And then I want to see my German, Japanese, and then finally I want French and Korean. Okay. And now that we have this set up, the hierarchy, I'm just going to add and change all the tasks according to the specification of this project, but it's the same thing that we do all the time. The next thing that I do, so now that I have all the tasks loaded, I'm going to set the dates for this. Now, finally, let me look at the statuses. So translation can be in progress. I'm going to do the same thing for MTPE. And let's say they both confirmed. And that's that. All right. So the final thing that you might want to do is set the assignees for everything. And again, this is taking its time. Processing, MTPE, DTP, QA, and delivery. All right. So this is our project B right now. Everything's laid out in the table. So what we're going to do next is we're going to jump into the Gantt chart as always. Again, it looks very similar, the same default thing. So I'm going to remove the things that I don't need to see here. I'm going to say that I want all tasks and I want them sorted by priority. Okay, I might zoom in a little bit. And there's our beautiful project. Beautiful. Really, really beautiful. And of course, you can expand and collapse. see the level that you need. MTPE. I think it's beautiful. One last thing that I think I didn't mention before is the customization of the information that you can see here. So I like the status colors, the dependencies. If you set them, sure, I'm going to turn them off because it's pretty much just a waterfall. Every task precedes the previous one. And the assignees, maybe I can take that off to clean it up a little bit. Okay, so this is my final Gantt chart for project B. Super simple, looks good. I really like it. And now we're getting to our final thing, which is what I always tell you. If you're managing multiple projects, you want to have one unified view where you can look at all your projects that you're currently managing in one place, so that you don't have to switch between the different things. How to do that in Wrike? Again, very, very simple. This is where we're going to utilize the folders. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it my projects. And for this one, what I want to be the default view would be a Gantt chart. And I just create it, and here I have my folder. And right now it's empty. All that we have to do is simply drag the projects under that folder. Here we are. And if I expand everything, you should be able to see everything, but it doesn't work. All tasks. There we go. That was the last thing that was missing. So the filter for all the tasks. And the last thing that I'm going to do is change the sorting by priority. Okay. So here you have your umbrella for my projects. Here is project A. You can see this is where it starts. This is where it ends, and everything that's below it. We can, let's say, hide the subtasks so that it's a little bit cleaner. So you can see our small task, small project, translation, review, delivery. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the assignees and the dependencies to clean it up again. And here we have our project B, which, as you can see, started earlier and is finishing around the same time. Under project B, we have German, Japanese, and we have French, Korean, which ends way earlier. It takes around 2 weeks. And here again, I can hide the subtasks if I want to. And this is it. This is what I was exactly telling you about. You want one nice unified view of all your projects. Here you have it. And I think just the way that they designed the Gantt charts is just beautiful. So, friends and family, this is it. This is my tutorial for Wrike. Other than the few things that I mentioned with the deletion and I don't know, maybe some small tiny things here and there, I really, really like Wrike. A lot of the things that I couldn't do in the previous platforms were possible here, and quite easy to do. And like I mentioned before, the Gantt charts look really nice. Even the tables look pretty nice. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I'll be back in, I have no idea, maybe in 1 month, in 2 weeks, with another new tutorial where we're going to do exactly the same thing in another platform, just to try it out, how it works, and maybe you like it, maybe not. So in the meantime, make sure you subscribe to our channel if you want to stay tuned to the content, and I'll see you in some other video. Bye bye.